All right, this is the fourth and final part for the MEP 803 Alpha generator. I'm here with the remnants, I guess, if you want to quick see what happened. This is kind of a weird intro to the video because I had to cut up what was going to be part 3 because it was too long, but we'll pick up where we left off and you'll see what happened. All right, so it runs. I re-neatened up everything. Still needs a good bath, but I'll worry about that after I run it under some load. You can see from all the smoke, obviously it needs to be run under a load and burnt out a little bit, very similar to if it was wet stacked really bad. I still had the issue where it was a little bit of like hydrolocked from probably still some fluid on top of the cylinders, but after cranking it a little bit, it did just kind of force past it and burn it all off. And it seems like it's running really smooth. So I'm gonna reassemble all the panels and stuff like that and get the new percent load gauge and wire up a pigtail and spend some time running it at half load and then full load. All right, everything is hooked up properly for 10,000 watt load. I don't know why I'm not too optimistic about this, but thing I'm looking for is the problem we had before is you'd be able to tell right away because it would be a little bit below the 60 hertz and then it would jump up. Yeah, I kind of just did the same thing. Check for blow-by. Definitely got blow-by. It's definitely blown by, but it sounded bad in the one. Since I got it hooked up, I might as well run it up to some load. I got it loaded up with 6,000 watts. I'll do that for 5 minutes and then try to load it all the way up. See what happens. Alright, it's been 5 more minutes. I'm going to load it all the way up to 10,000 and see what happens. You can see around the exhaust, it's spitting out a bunch of chunks of soot again. Oh, there is some smoke in there. I'm almost leaning towards maybe the injectors are bad, but the problem is the injectors are kind of expensive to buy. I don't want to just throw them at it. There's some cheap Chinese copy ones. Maybe it's worth just getting the Chinese ones to throw in there and see if they work. And that makes a difference because I know they won't last, but that'll at least tell me if that's what the problem is. But that's where we're at for now. I'll figure out and we'll keep going later. All right, so after just putting the ATF in the cylinders, I think I still had the same problem even though it was good for it and cleaned it up. I probably should have had this before, but I bought the tool for helping to pull out injectors. And what I'm gonna do, I also bought a mechanical injector pop tester. I just got like a cheapo one to give me a rough idea. But I'm gonna pull the injectors back out and go one by one and test them. Because I had just removed these injectors, they're not really in there that rough, but the way this one works is it's got an adapter that's got 2 different sizes on it. The M12 one goes on the top here. And it's basically just a small slide hammer. There we go, and there wasn't in there that bad. Then I have the little pop tester set up over here. Basically the way that this works is there's all kinds of different pop testers. This is just a cheap Amazon like Vevor one from in the TM. Basically a used injector should open at about 3,500 PSI. And then an injector leak off rate, it said, is 10 to 40 seconds, and it should go to like 2200 to 1500 psi. So before recording this, I did use this a little bit to figure it out, and I found on this that all of them, even the new one, are leaking down, and it's probably because this isn't the best machine. So I don't know if the leak down test, but basically what this is it's a hand operated pump, and you'll see that it starts coming up, and then what we're watching for is for that pressure to break, and you'll start to see so yeah, it was like 33, a little low, but that's close enough. It's not like it's way down here. And the other thing you're looking for, you got to be careful being near the injector, kind of looking at it the best you can to see that it's injecting. These injectors should spray in 4 different directions. Don't go crazy, because if you're actually using diesel to do it, it's putting atomized diesel, which that is flammable. See the leak down, it just keeps going down to basically 0, unless I'm an idiot and I'm not understanding how to use this right. Because with that valve closed, it doesn't allow anything to pass, and the instructions on it suck. I'm gonna go through and test all the injectors like this a couple of times and see if one's bad. Everything's put back together except for the cover on the top here. Normal, we're hooked up to the forklift. All right, primed quite a bit, so first let's just see if we get it to start. I expect it to stutter because of all the air in the injection pump lines. All right, let's see what happens. Let's see if we still get that lag in the hertz when it starts back up. Well, it does seem more happy, but now what I want to do is let it sit. So I'm going to let it sit for a little bit and come back and see if it has that lag during like a colder start. All right, it's sat here for 45 minutes. Let's see. No, still did it. All right, it's been quite a while since I spent some time working on this. Took it back out and spent a little bit of time with it after doing quite a bit of reading and stuff, and took another approach at it thinking that it might just be really badly wet stacked, and that wasn't the case, and I think I might have totally done it in. I'm gonna do my best to record it here while holding this flashlight, but you can see how there's some moisture down in there where I'm pointing the laser, how it ran from up here. Where that came from was, I saw it in particular, but it may have come from more, was the valve cover gasket right here, which I know has been replaced and is sealed good. I believe what happened was what I originally thought it was, and one or more rings or something was worn, and it was causing pressure in the crankcase, which then, as the oil was being pumped by the oil pump, was kind of getting up, and then it was getting stuck up top. And then it got stuck up top so much, and there was so much pressure building up that it just squeezed out here, because there's really not that much on there. And because of that, it was showing a false oil pressure reading on the gauge. What had happened is, as I was running it, is it did very similar to it did the first time when I was load testing it, and it sort of bogged down slowly. And I thought that, well, if it's kind of wet stacked really bad, it's not going to be able to take a full load. I just slowly took it off, and basically what happened is it stalled itself out no matter what. Now I let it sit overnight. The oil level is slightly down, but nothing alarming. And now kind of can't even get it to start. I think whatever ring was bad got much worse, or it just kind of did the whole engine in, because basically very similar to like running low on oil or no oil. that's about. So that's all I'm getting out of it. And it smells nasty. Basically, when it stalled itself out, that smell of burnt metal. Again, I'm not sure how much you'd be able to really see it on the camera. It's more noticeable in person, but I noticed these 2 cylinders up here seemed really hot. All right, I wanted to splice this clip in. As I was taking this apart to part out, I found the source of the problem for sure, and it was half what I originally thought it was the whole time, and I don't know if it turned into a bigger problem or the problem was there and got worse, or just found it and it ultimately caused it to completely fail. So up on these front 2 cylinders, you can see there's some pretty good like scoring on the walls. You kind of see it looks like white. So the rings are probably pretty worn on these. And otherwise the top of the pistons are pretty clean. And then on the back 2, these are the ones that have a ton of, if you get in there and look really close, there's a lot of like soot build up on them. And what I realized is if you look at it really close, the most obvious spot is right here. You can see where it's discolored. And if you position, I'm probably standing in the light, but it's wet. It's wet with like oil, and this is kind of jacked up from, but it smells like coolant too. And what all these little orifices right here are coolant passages. Earlier in the video, I mentioned that I thought it was coming from the valve cover gasket that started to leak. Possibly it leaked, but I think what it was just oil, diesel, and whatever coolant was in there. It kind of traveled up from the head gasket, and the head gasket is what leaked down here. The head gasket started to leak. You can also see it here. So this is what would be placed there, and this is working its way towards the front of the motor. You can see how these are those passages, and you can see how it's all kind of wet. This has been sitting here for a couple hours now, and I'm pretty sure this cylinder right here was leaking, or there was a crack. Of course, the gasket gets ripped apart when you take it apart. So I bet you if I had done some sort of compression test on here, I would have found bad compression or leak down because of the head gasket on these. The valves and everything were seated good. The push rods weren't bent. But what I think ended up happening was the head gasket got worse. I don't know if it was because of anything I did. Definitely was because I kept running it, and it started to siphon coolant out. When I ran it this last time, the white smoke was coolant when I thought it was ATF burning off from when I tried to get the rings to seat back. And it basically burnt off all the coolant. The coolant went, and then it didn't overheat. That is probably why this scoring here looks so bad, is basically the pistons overheated. It just started, the rings got horrible. So maybe this problem wasn't even here. The head gasket problem is always, I don't know. The motor grenaded itself because it ate the coolant. It didn't show an overheat because either the temperature gauge was bad, which I don't think it was. I think what the problem really was is that it ate all the coolant, and then it was basically trying to take a reading in what should have been coolant, and it was air. And it was showing some temperature, but not enough temperature. Or it got so hot it ruined the temperature probe or sender. Anyway, that's what happened. It is repairable, but this is already all parted out. Most of the parts and stuff are already sold. At least I found exactly what the problem was. But at this point, I'm just gonna call the whole generator a loss. Being a business owner, at this point, I've already spent so much time trying to fix this. I have way more money in parts in this thing for my business and for other people who need things. But even just the fact that I know the injection pumps and all the injectors and stuff are good, it's just kind of the reality of the situation and all the other components that are on here. It's just, it's worth more in parts at this point. I'm not gonna really pursue it any farther. It took me quite a while to make this last part because I really did want to get it going, but it's dead, unfortunately, especially after all the work I've already put into it. That's what you get. I call it the GovPlanet gamble. I think it had this problem to begin with, and they knew it. I will have a bunch of known good used parts when I get this thing taken apart. Hopefully you learned some things in this video series, get some ideas, and link to my eBay store down below. Thanks for watching.